Hey, welcome to Trial by Father. I'm Isaac, and as a brand new dad, I've got more questions than I have answers for. So, I'm sitting across the table from other parents who are further along the journey than I am, hoping to learn from their wisdom. I want to explore what it looks like to raise children in the discipline and instruction of the Lord. And my hope is that it'll spark meaningful conversations around your own table so that we can all learn what it looks like to be the parents God has called us to be. In this episode, I got to sit down with Sydney Meek and talk all about the toddler years. Sydney and her husband Mason are members of Mill City and have 3 kids ranging from 1 to 6 years old. If you're like me and you haven't been a parent of a toddler yet, you might be intimidated by what they call the terrible twos. But I was encouraged in this conversation as Sydney talked about the great opportunities for intentional parenting. Yes, there's going to involve some discipline during this time, but it's also great opportunities for teaching and instructing and setting the household values that you care about as a parent. I hope you're encouraged by this conversation, and with that, let's dive in. Well, thank you, Sydney, for coming and sitting down to have this conversation with me about the toddler years. Why don't you just give us the quick 30-second introduction to yourself?
Okay, I'm Sydney. I have been married for 9 years now and have 3 kids. My oldest is 6, my middle is 3, and then my youngest just turned 1. And then we homeschool, so I stay home with them all day, all day, every day.
Yeah.
That's my life right now. It's middle of parenting and motherhood.
Yeah, that sounds like a lot. We have 1 4-month-old, and I work full time, and that feels like a lot. But
Yeah.
yours feels like 10 times that much.
Yeah, it's a big full-time job.
Yeah, for sure. Well, maybe we talk a little bit about. I am myself in what we refer to as the infant stage, like newborn. He's just a helpless little noodle that can't do anything for himself. So maybe if you talk to me a little bit about what are some of the defining characteristics that you have found specifically in that toddler age where they're no longer an infant, but they're not all the way to going off to school yet, and they're still in those early years of development, and maybe when do you know you're in that stage and you've made that transition from just keeping a thing alive to doing a little bit more?
Yeah, infants, really, it's just meeting their basic needs, and like setting up basic routines. Like as soon as they wake up, what's the first thing you do? You change their diaper, are you going to go eat breakfast? What does it look like? And they're recognizing these patterns, but then once you get into a toddler stage, they're technically toddlers, like they're toddling around, they're walking.
Okay.
But I tend to have early walkers, and so they're not quite communicating yet. So I think I would consider a toddler like 15 to 18 months.
Okay.
Is when it starts through age 3, to where they can communicate with you. They can say yes or no. They can understand basic commands. You can help teach them to kind of clean up after themselves, which we'll probably talk about. And yeah, so with them, it's a lot more about managing their emotions and communicating. They're becoming more socially aware and gaining more very small responsibilities and independence, and they are wanting to just share a lot of opinions with you, and they're having to navigate those things. So I think it's a lot of helping them to learn how to think for themselves and how to use their brain in a lot of ways.
Gotcha. So I mean, this is just me saying what you just said, but it sounds like what you are saying is that the main defining factor is that it's communication, verbally at least speaking.
Yeah, where they can say yes or no and some simple words.
Yeah,
too.
and where they're understanding the at least the flow of thought for the most part that you are trying to share as you're speaking to them, and they are learning to comprehend at the very least, and being able to interact with that, and that's really some of the beginning foundation of you being able to teach and instruct, right? Surely that's got to be it. I mean, I guess a lot of communication is nonverbal, but when we think about teaching and instructing, it is in the realm of talking, saying things,
Right.
telling your children, here's how we do things, here's what this looks like, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So a lot of before that toddler stage, it's nonverbal communication.
Sure.
And so they're just kind of they're recognizing different patterns and how you behave and seeing that. But then once they do turn into a toddler and they can communicate more, they can give you yes or no answers to things. And then you can, as you are giving them more of the same commands repeatedly, like, okay, we're going to eat now, you need to eat your food or whatever it is, then they're able to communicate that more as well.
Yeah. I have not had to face it yet because Leo's only 4 months old. But I am well aware and have been told by many people that you start entering into this age and then discipline becomes a big thing that whether you really seek to work through it or not, it's there and you've got to deal with it. So I guess my question is, how have y'all planned for discipline with especially going back to like your first kid? Did you plan for it and you had an idea of what you were looking for, and you know it was all theoretical until you actually engaged in it? Or did you just make it up as you went? Talk about that process of like learning what it looks like to engage in discipline with your children.
Yeah, first off, discipline, you're always training your kids, no matter whether it's intentional or not. You're doing something and they're going to catch on to it, and that is training them in some way.
Yeah.
But we personally kind of just take it stage by stage, and we recognize like, okay, this is where my child is at. This is what he or she is capable of understanding, or like here is an area that we've already recognized sin, and like this has been repeated. Here's maybe how I think we should handle it, and like maybe it's a lot of trial and error, honestly, and it's like we can try out this consequence and try to like play it by this rule book, and then if that doesn't work out, try something else. But I think the main thing is just we try to focus on staying consistent, and if we catch a repeated sin, we want to make sure we catch it every time and not like let it slide sometimes or depending on the circumstance.
Sure.
But yeah, just focusing on consistency and just trial and error, really. And as we have had more kids, we can see what has worked with my oldest, and it's not always the same with my other children. And so that's kind of a challenging aspect of it as well, because not every child is the same, and they're not going to react the same to the way that they're being disciplined.
Yeah. I don't really know if it's quantifiable, so you don't have to answer it in the numerical sense, but how much weight, energy do you feel like y'all have had to give directly to discipline itself?
A lot. It's all day training, really.
Sure.
I mean, it is very inconvenient, and there's scripture that says discipline is unpleasant when you experience it, especially from the Lord. I mean, we're called to be obedient to Him, and then when we're not, we are disciplined in that way, and He can give us consequences for our actions and our sins, and we have to walk in obedience in that way to Him to have that authority over our children, and it takes a lot of effort, and it's not fun sometimes having to stop what I'm doing and be interrupted to go discipline children, and it takes a lot of intentionality of like getting down on their level and talking with them and walking through wherever something went wrong, like here's what you should have done, here's what we're going to do next time, and like if you need a consequence for this, we're going to do it right now. Whatever we were already doing, we're going to stop what it is and handle this. And I think the more that you catch it instantly or as soon as possible, I think it's more effective too, because I mean, toddlers have a short attention span.
Sure.
Sometimes if you wait until later, you're like, hey, remember when you did this? And they're like, no. Or they're like, oh, yeah, I remember, and then just kind of go along their day. But
sure.
Yeah.
Whatever was there to interact with is kind of gone away at that point.
The moment has passed, and it's kind of too late.
Yeah, absolutely. What I feel like during this time, in my experience working like in Kid City and other kid spaces where you interact with this kind of age kid, or you just around other families where they got kids that are in this range, the 1 to 3-ish, somewhere around in there, is the question why just shows up. And so, I mean, piggybacking off the discussion of discipline, it can show up there. A why are you asking me to do this kind of thing? Why is the thing we're doing happening? But it also just I feel like it's born out of curiosity, and they're learning and they're trying to understand how the world works and all that. But they just are asking why constantly. What's been your experience with that? And we can talk about different facets, each one at a time. and I'll just, you share what your experience has been.
Yeah, toddlers are very curious, and they're learning about the world, how to interact with people, and about how things work. And so naturally, they're going to ask why all the time.
Sure.
You're going to get a lot of why questions.
Yeah.
And I often don't know the answer to them. But usually it is out of curiosity. And we want to answer those with as basic terms as we can
Sure.
that we know they're capable of understanding. And so if they're asking, why do I have to wear this to church? And we're like, well, we're going to look nice for church. And that's that. Like, that's pretty much the answer that you're going to get.
Sure.
But sometimes it is out of defiance, or they're trying to delay doing whatever you're asking them to do. So if we're saying, like, giving them a command, like, you need to eat this, or we're going to go get dressed right now, or whatever it is, and if they respond with a why, I mean, that also kind of goes back to, like, their attention span. If you're going to end up giving them a full explanation and kind of go back and forth, have this dialogue with them of, like, well, this is why we're going to do this. And they're like, well, why do we need to do it this way? And you keep going back and forth. By the time, like, 2 minutes have passed, they're going to forget. And you may also, because I have mom brain a lot, and I would forget that I told them to do something in the first place.
Sure.
And so it just kind of gets lost. So, I mean, we kind of set this expectation for our kids from an early age. Once they learn how to talk, we say, if we give you a command, if we say, you need to do this, they should respond to us first and say, yes, ma'am, yes, sir, okay, mommy, okay, daddy, and then do it immediately and obey right away. And then they can ask why. If they want to know why we told them to do something, they can do that, and we'll explain it. But the expectation there is that they need to obey immediately. And
Sure.
if they don't, then that is disobedience. And that's how we're doing it personally. Yeah. And so, the question of why is not bad in any sense, but it's just there's a time and a place for it. And if I'm giving you a command, then that is not the time to be asking why.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I think that's good, because it can be, as somebody who likes to teach, and I can see this in myself in the future when we're dealing with it, which is I love the question why, because it opens up all sorts of conversations to talk about all sorts of great things.
Yeah.
Of course, when you're dealing with toddler, like you're saying, we got to use simple language.
Yeah.
That'll be the thing I wrestle with. Is not
getting too
short,
technical.
simple, sweet, to the point, nothing else. But understanding, recognizing that they also have an ability to be crafty, and to whether they fully know it or not, are acting in some level of disobedience at times. Where the why is like a delay, or it's trying to maybe see if we can get out of whatever this specific thing is that I was asked to do. And I'm assuming that you all have seen the fruit of, over time, building in the spaces of when to ask why versus when to just respond.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it is kind of sad recognizing that these precious little image bearers are sinful. And the first times that you start noticing, like, they are being so deceitful right now, or like they're purposefully disobeying.
Yeah.
It's sad, but it's important to recognize that, but also like that they are being sinful, and you need to know that and to deal with it however you need to. But
Sure.
Yeah, it is sad. It's sad to recognize that in your own children that you love so much, and they're so precious, but they have sinful hearts too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, absolutely. Let's shift gears a little bit and talk directly about responsibility. So you prefaced back at the beginning of the conversation about chores, things that they can do to help out or whatever. What has it looked like for y'all at specifically the toddler age for them to start having rhythms of being helpers and not just consumers?
That's a good way to put it. Helpers and not consumers. The earliest thing I can think of that we start with our kids is to clean up after themselves.
Okay.
And that involves you getting down with them, and you have to show them where things go, so it takes a lot of time.
Sure.
And but just teaching them to clean up after themselves, it's kind of introducing this responsibility of, like, these are your things and we're going to take care of them. And I mean, that can start as soon as they start walking, or they're
Sure.
more mobile and they know how to pull things off the shelf. You should be alongside them, showing them, we're going to put it back now, and there's a cleanup song, you can sing that with them to help them learn. But yeah, that's usually...
I'm assuming this is definitely toys.
Yes.
Does it apply to like mealtime stuff as too? They're helping.
That I would say comes
some?
a little bit later.
Okay.
I mean, especially if they're still in a high chair. Obviously,
Sure.
there's only so much they can do when they're strapped in. But
Sure.
yeah, as they get older and can communicate more and kind of understand how things work, you can show them like, we're going to take your trash away, or bring mommy your plate when you're done eating.
Sure.
We have a little handheld vacuum that we let our toddler go around, and she'll
Okay.
clean up messes. And obviously, it's not going to be perfect, and that's to be expected of a toddler
Sure.
trying to clean something up. But that's something that you just have to like die to yourself in that thing and know that it's not going to be done perfectly, but you are training them to be more independent and to have some responsibilities, and know that like as a member of this house, we're going to be helpful, and you are part of this family just like everybody else.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, before we sat down and talked the other day when I was asking you about this conversation and talking about responsibilities, you brought up a fair point that choices, them growing in the responsibility of making their own choices, and maybe you can talk a little bit about what exactly do you mean by that, and what does that look like for you all in your family?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of people talk about giving your toddler choices and allowing them to choose, like, okay, what are you going to wear today? Are you going to wear a blue shirt or a red shirt? And I think it's okay to give them that freedom, but you have to know that their brain's not capable of understanding, like, these are all of your options, so, like, go pick out something from your entire closet.
Sure.
But narrowing it down, if it's something simple like that, like what they're going to wear, or I don't know, if they want to clean up this toy first or this toy first, like they can have those little freedoms. But when it comes to bigger issues, like, okay, it's time to get out of the house now, like they don't have a choice in that.
Sure.
That's going to be, you just need to obey in those moments. Or I don't know, I'm trying to think of something else, but a lot of it just comes down to like, they need to understand that you are their parent, you're the authority, and so their choices are not going to like take that out of balance. That can't be the ruling figure there. Sure,
they're not undermined. What's the long-term goal with giving them choices? Because it keeps, I mean, you give more and more choices as time goes on, and so we're talking about really what is just the beginning of this, the genesis of the idea of them making choices. What's the plan long term?
I think it's kind of setting them up to understand free will and how we have our own free will alongside like God's plan for us. Obviously, He is the ultimate authority in our lives, and we have our own free will to make choices through our lives. But with children, like, you have to pull back the reins a lot, and you're like, this is the amount of authority I will give you in this circumstance, but these are your boundaries, and you're going to have to stick within this. So I think just kind of teaching them to think for themselves. And then you can also, like, in those small scenarios, you can kind of help them along and talk them through, like, okay, maybe we should, pick to do this thing instead of this thing. Or, like, maybe this one will be a little messier, so we have to think, like, are you going to clean up after yourself? Or do you want to do something that's easy, like a smaller toy that you can get out? So I think also just walking them through the circumstance and helping their brain start working and connecting the dots between just different concepts.
Gotcha. Yeah. So if I'm hearing you, there's two primary things at play. One of which is being somebody who is helpful, that you're taking care of stuff as well. I mean, that eventually you're going to be out on your own. I know we're talking about toddlers here, but like,
you are training them to be a human.
Yeah. And you're going to have to take care of yourself. And then also, you talked about it as free will, that idea that you have to make choices, and those have consequences, whether good or bad. It's just like you're going to make a choice, and there's going to be something that comes of that. And this is the very beginning of it. But like you were talking about, like, you can play with this toy, but if you play with it, you do have to clean it up.
Right.
And so by you choosing that, and it's not necessarily teaching them always do the simplest thing so that, but it's just helping them understand, when I choose this eventually will come of it. And that's a great human skill to understand that the things that I decide will have effect later in life. And most likely I'll have to deal with them in some kind of way. Absolutely. Speaking of choices, not directly for kids, but for you and your husband, one of the big things in the last couple decades for parents to navigate is the world of screens. And so maybe share a little bit about what y'all have talked about, what y'all have allowed your kids to do, not allowed your kids to do in terms of engagement with different types of screens.
The way that I see it is it's more of a tool rather than entertainment in our house. And so if I am needing, especially since my kids are home with me all the time, my biggest example is having to mop the floors, because if I'm mopping and they're following me, they're tripping, they're getting hurt, like it's just a chaotic mess. So that's one big thing. If I'm going to mop the floors and like do a deep clean of the floors, I will turn a show on for them for 20, 30 minutes, have them sit on the couch. They're contained. They're not interrupting me. I can mop and finish and let the floors dry. By the time they get up, everything's fine. So that's how I use it as a tool. Maybe like 2 or 3 times a week I'll do that. And then we homeschool. And so if we're learning a topic that I know there's like a YouTube video on or something, we'll watch that. What else? If someone's sick, that's when we'll watch a movie. And then maybe once or twice a month, we'll have a family movie night. So then that is our form of entertainment in that stance. But usually it's just a tool for me. And my kids don't expect it in our daily routine. They know. The only time they ask for it is if they're sick. They're like, oh, someone's sniffling. Like, we get to watch a movie today. But yeah, that's the main time that they expect it. But I think a lot of that, if parents start relying on screens and giving their kids tablets like in public, or if they're at home, if they're having to like do the dishes or something, and they just stick a screen in front of their kids, I think it's doing a disservice to them, because they're not learning how to play independently, and they're relying on mom or dad or whoever to entertain them all the time, and they can't do this just tiny problem-solving skill of like, I'm going to go do something else. So we set that up really early on of doing independent play, and then my kids know, like, if I'm doing something and they come ask me to help or to do something with them, I'm like, you can either help me with this chore, which I would gladly involve them in whatever it is. It'll take longer, but I will involve them. So you can join me, or you can go play and go find something to do. We have plenty of toys in the house. Go find one and play with it. So I think screen time can be helpful, and there are good shows out there. There's a lot of new ones that we don't allow in our house. We have lots of boundaries there. So I want to like check through them before we watch them. But aside from that, like it's not a bad thing. I don't think it should be demonized in any way. But I think it can be harmful if you allow too much.
Yeah, absolutely. And piece of candy. A piece of candy for a kid to have, wonderful, joyous experience, but continually always becomes a very bad thing for him. And it sounds like you kind of have 2 main categories, which is one, what you clearly said, it's a tool. It's me using it for the benefit and sake of the function of the house, and for their learning and development for y'all specifically with homeschooling stuff. And then there's this other piece that's like, it's community, it's family building time, it's we're going to have a movie time, and it's not the kids get to go sit and watch their movie, and that one has that one on that tablet and that tablet, and I'm on my phone, and dad is over here looking at the screen or whatever. It's like, no, we're all coming together, we're picking a movie, it's with toddlers, so it's probably a toddler movie. But point being, it's like, this is a thing we're doing together, we're coming together to do it, and I think those are really helpful and categories to think about, consider this time. Let's shift gears again and talk some about specifically what it looks like. We've talked about this is a stage where verbal communication really comes into play. And of course, as people who are people of the word is communication to us. So what does it look like in this stage? What are some things that y'all have found helpful for teaching the word to your kids?
We use a lot of storybook Bibles because they're easy. They're broken down already into each individual story. And so that's easy for us to just open one up and talk about, whoever we're on, Samson. And talk through like what this character is going through, and just read it as if it's like a book, but also at the end talk about like how we can relate it to our lives in the most basic terms, obviously. If there's like forgiveness in the story, we'll talk about that. But yeah, mostly storybook Bibles, and then we'll do some scripture memorization with like songs and hand motions so that it can help them to remember it. And me, I'm better with like, if I'm doing hand motions to something, I'll
I think
remember
most adults are.
Right, we should all be doing it. And aside from that, I mean, we try to introduce the gospel in the most simplest way and start talking about sin at an early age and say, like, here's a choice that you made that was not the right choice, and here's what you should have done. But you know what? Like, mommy and daddy still love you. And I think it's really cool to recognize how we as parents are their first example of like unconditional love and how God loves us and disciplines us and forgives us. And we get to model that for our kids. And so we kind of try to connect the dots there. I don't know how much they can grasp it at that age, but just getting the vocabulary in front of them and saying like, mommy and daddy love you and forgive you. And like, even though you did this bad, quote unquote, bad thing, we still love you. And you know what? Jesus loves you too. And he died for you. And they probably don't know what that means either.
Sure.
But
yeah.
as long as you introduce it early, they'll catch on later when you start talking more about it or more about Easter and the Advent season and all of that. I think they'll connect the dots more.
Sure. I know that all your kids are still younger. Your oldest has kind of exited that phase of toddler and starting to go more on towards the kind of school years. Have you seen, I know it might be a little too early, but have you seen any fruit that's come from the really early when you're in that phase where you're like, I don't really even know if the thing I'm saying is worth me saying because you don't even understand it? Have you seen anything yet or not yet?
Yeah, she knows how to recognize her own sin, and we can tell like when she's convicted over something because she just gets so emotional and upset about it. And like, it's okay, you know what? Because we love you and we forgive you, or like if it's a sin against one of her siblings, we're like, they still love you and want to play with you, and it adds a layer of depth to just the gospel story itself and her understanding of like how she personally is involved in it. And it's been really cool to see that through her eyes. But also like when she was younger, I think I just had like a new children's Bible, and I would open it up and she flipped right to the picture of Jesus, and she's like, that's Jesus, at like 2, maybe 3 years old. And I'm like, oh my gosh, you're right, it is. And I'm like, I've never even shown her this before. But I don't know, it's cool that like their minds are storing these things, and whether we know it or not, they are storing them, and they're, like I said, they're going to be connecting the dots in the future too. So it has been really sweet to recognize that and know that like the things that we're doing with our younger 2 kids will pay off and will bear fruit in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. Sowing a seed that it gets buried, you don't see it, but later you get to see it. And so it sounds like maybe you're starting to see a little bit of it now with your oldest, and that hopefully that can just continue to grow, and you'll be able to reap the fruit of that. Let's shift gears again, and I feel like everybody, whether you have kids or not, knows that at this stage there's a reason it's called the terrible twos. You got temper tantrums. There's a lot of big emotions being worked through, a lot of rebellion being discovered as a little kid, and sometimes that happens in spaces that is not the home where other people are around. And all of a sudden, it's no longer just the kids whose heart is on display, but now the parents as well their heart is on display to other people. And so I'm assuming that you all have felt that before. So maybe talk a little bit about what that's like to have a little kid who starts to be defiant against you, against other people, maybe even, but in those spaces, and what it's like for you to feel that in those things, what's going through your heart and in your mind, and what are some things that have helped you work to maybe be a little bit more stable, not be concerned what other people think, all the things might be associated with it.
I mean, it is embarrassing if your kid's throwing a tantrum in front of people, and I think it's inevitable to feel that. But we, as parents, have to model self-control for our kids and show them that, like, I am embarrassed, and this is a hard moment for me, but I am going to hopefully deal with my own emotions, and show grace, and continue to stay consistent and disciplined, because if you're letting your kid off the hook every single time you're out of the house, you're really setting themselves up for failure. And they're not going to know that, like, there's a certain way that you need to act, and these are your expectations. And if if you're not following them in public, like, we got to work on that at home. And my husband actually made a good point the other day. He said, when you're in public, it's a test for what you've been practicing in private. And so if you're diligent about disciplining at home and then you go out in public, it's like, yeah, you can give them reminders and say, like, you know, if we're going to go into a store or the library, you need to be quiet and hold on to the cart or whatever it is. Don't run away. We're gonna stay as a family, stay together. Like, those are okay to give them these expectations, but they should already know that, like, there are expectations, they should be following them, and if you're being consistent at home, then, like, that will follow through into public as well.
Sure.
So I think a lot of the feelings that come up as an adult, I mean, you just got to set them aside. You got to set aside that pride and your selfishness and just know that this is a training moment and take it as it is.
How much more difficult is it, in your experience, to deal with a toddler who's throwing a tantrum when you're in public versus when you're in the house?
I mean, it's a lot more difficult because you know that there's other people watching you. And so you're worried about what they're thinking. I try to, like, play all these thoughts that are in their minds. I'm like, they probably think I'm a horrible mom. They think my kids don't get any discipline at home. They think they're just these wild animals. And I have to, like, cut those off myself and practice that self-control, like I said. Take those thoughts captive and know that that's not, like, their opinions are not the truth of me. I know how my kids are acting. I know that they are sinful, but maybe they had a bad day, or maybe whatever the circumstance is, like, they are children still, and they still need discipline as well. So it's kind of two-sided there. Yeah. So yeah.
How much more difficult is the discipline itself? So even separate from no, you answer the question perfectly. I'm just going in a different direction here. Mm-hmm. Like, I can imagine that it's easier at home. I mean, we have a 4-month-old.
Yeah.
And so there's no discipline at all involved. But I've even felt some, like, when I'm in the spaces around other people, I feel like I've got to do it right, or I've got to be, like, nonchalant, because if I'm trying too hard, it's like, I don't know exactly what, I'm still working through it in my own head. Yeah. So maybe talk through it specifically in the discipline piece, like, how much more difficult is it? What are some of the things you're wrestling through?
Yeah. I would still say it is more difficult, just because you're trying to do something. I mean, my first thought is being in a grocery store. You're trying to buy your groceries. So this is an interruption of your day. And even if you have to leave and go to the car and have a conversation with your kid, if they need a consequence, then you can go ahead and do that. But I think it all comes back to, like, being consistent and knowing that, like, the way that they're acting usually as a toddler comes down to disobedience. And so just consistency is the answer to that. If they're going to be disobedient, you need to be consistent in your consequence with them. And if you can't leave, try to, like, get to the car or somewhere where you can get on their level and have whatever your consequence, discipline, conversation needs to look like. But yeah, just, I think, consistency, and it's hard to be consistent, especially in public, but it takes a lot of dying to yourself and knowing that, like, all these people are probably thinking these thoughts about you, and especially if you know them, you're like, maybe they're going to bring it up, or maybe they're going to always think this way about me, but you have to just set that aside.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I would love to end on a high note, talking about some of your favorite things about this stage of life, but before you get there, real quick, is there anything that I haven't asked, haven't brought up, that you're like, oh, you're so not there yet because you didn't even talk about blank?
I don't think so. I mean, just recognizing that, like, your toddlers are only capable of so much, and so kind of tying in all the things, like, you can only give them so much freedom.
Sure.
They can only understand so much, and so if you're giving them all these choices, like, their brains are not capable of deciphering that. I know a big thing is, like, disciplining them, saying, like, this is a more severe moment where they do need to obey right away. But then there's other moments where it's like, I'm going to tell them to do something, and if they don't right away, like, maybe it's okay. But that's where the consistency ties in. It's like, every time you give that command, you need to expect obedience. And I mean, an example of that would be if your child is in the street and you're like, you need to get out of the way, come here right now. And if they're used to having this dialogue of like, why do I need to come right now? Like, I'm having fun.
Sure.
And have a 2-minute conversation, that may be 2 minutes too late. Like, that's a very extreme example, but I mean,
Sure.
they
Paints a
don't
picture.
know if mom's telling me to come here from the kitchen. Maybe she wants my attention, or like maybe I'm about to be in danger. So I think just the main theme of the toddler years is like consistency and requiring obedience, really.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I'd love to close on you sharing some of your favorite things about this stage. Maybe it's specific memories that you want to share, or maybe it's just general ideas that you've just found joy in this season.
I love the toddler ages because they're forming so many opinions that can be difficult, because a lot of times you'll butt heads on things. But you learn what brings them joy. And like my oldest, when she was little, she had all the princess jewelry and would wear it everywhere.
Yeah.
Everywhere we went, she had the crown with the same color, earrings, the bracelets, the rings, everything. Her whole getup, and everyone's like, is it her birthday? She's like, no, I'm just a princess. And it's so cute. And then my middle child, right now, she's in the toddler years. She wants lipstick. Everywhere she goes, she has to put on her little lipstick. She says, Mommy, do I look beautiful? I'm like, you are always beautiful, but yes. So I think it's so fun. Both of my girls are just girly girls. My son is only 1, so he's not quite there yet.
Sure.
But learning just the things that make them happy and the joy that just little things like that bring them. And I also love the mispronounced words. My oldest, I think it was until she was maybe 5, maybe a little bit before then, she asked me if Lelo started with an L. And I was like, I gotta tell her the truth now. Like, it's a Y. It's actually yellow.
You got me there, because I was like, Lelo, is this like the name?
I know.
Or something?
Yeah.
No, we're just talking about the color.
Yep, yellow. She called it Lelo. And then there's some words that we're like, we are holding on to this as long as we can. And she's 6. She still calls restaurants restaurants. And so our whole family, all of our friends, we're like, it is restaurant. And that's how we will pair. That's how we're going to phrase it. And so just seeing that, I think, like the toddler, the mispronounced words are so cute. And they're going to eventually learn how to spell and read and write. I mean, that's how my 6-year-old got into it. She's like, why is there a Y on this word? What is this word? So, I mean, they'll learn eventually, and you'll end up teaching them. But I love all the mispronounced words, and we try to like say those back to them sometimes.
Yeah.
To keep them going.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming and having this conversation. I know it's been helpful for me, because even though we are like a year out, that's basically like a day. So it'll be tomorrow is what it's going to feel like before we're there as well. And hopefully those people who are listening in on this also have found the same encouragement as I have from this. Thanks so much for tuning in and listening. As a reminder, this is just the start of the conversation. This isn't the end. The hope is that you would pick this up in your own family, in your church family, in your community group, and be able to have conversations about what it looks like for you to parent your own kids. Thanks for joining me today in this conversation about parenting. I hope it was helpful to you, and that it sparks good conversation for your own family. I know that each family is unique, and you're going to have your own questions about whatever you're facing with your kids. So don't ever hesitate to reach out to other families in our church or your pastors about any help that you might need as a parent.